So for this demonstration, we'll be doing Zentangles. Zentangles are a really cool form of art history, not form, example of art history, that I really encourage you to look up the backstory and where it comes from, because it's a really cool aspect of art history, and there's a lot of meaning behind it as well. But today I'm just going to show you how to do it. So what you'll need is just any kind of paper you want. I'm just using regular copy paper for this. I use different size Sharpies. So I have a medium Sharpie, a thin Sharpie, and a Sharpie pen, which there's not a ton of difference between these two, but it's slight, and I like to have the variation. So let's switch it over to my document camera. Now the point of this is all about patterns. So let me kind of bring my document camera closer. I don't need that big of a space. What I do with these, now you can draw something out first if you would like. A lot of people do like drawings of like a flower or even a portrait, or like with your hair coming out cool, or whatever you want. But for this purpose sake, I'm just going to divide my paper up into a couple different things. Okay, so I'm using my big Sharpie first, and I'm going to divide my picture plane into a couple different shapes. So I can do that with curved lines. That one kind of looks like a wave. I can do just a plain circle, and then I can also do straight lines. Maybe I'll make this look like a sun. So this ended up being kind of a picture. I didn't intend for this to be like an ocean scene, but it kind of ended up looking like that. So I'm going to just embrace it. Oops. Now I use straight Sharpie. I don't like doing it in pencil first, because then you have to go over everything all over again, and that just takes up so much time. So I have some cool shapes. My picture plane is divided in certain ways. Now mine happened to end up looking like a picture, but sometimes I've just done like a diamond and a square and a couple lines between, so you can divide it however you want. And now you just basically pick a pattern and you do that pattern. So let's see, one of the patterns I really love doing is kind of an optical illusion in itself. I'm going to pick this shape to do it in. And I start with a corner, and I just do 3 lines in that corner. Then I can come around and do 3 lines in this corner, and then 3 lines in this corner. And now the purpose of a pattern is that it always repeats. So that was the rule I picked, doing 3 lines in the corners, and now I just have to repeat that rule. So here's kind of the new corner. 1, 2, 3. These corners are going to get kind of wide. 1, 2, 3. That one got a little skinny, but it's okay. 1, 2, 3. Now, the biggest mistake I see people doing with this pattern is letting your lines start to curve. So try, even if it gets shallow and goes really far, like some of these, don't let them curve. Try to still do straight. So every time I do 3 lines in a corner, it makes a new shape and adds new corners. So I just keep going around and around, and I do these 3 lines in every corner. Okay, so as you can see, my shape just keeps getting smaller and smaller, and I'm just literally going to continue the pattern until there's no space left at all. Now, one of the reasons this is called Zentangles is that you do kind of get into a Zen state. When you're just repeating a pattern, you almost get to turn your brain off. And so it's really relaxing. Nowadays, they have all of these adult coloring books that are in the same kind of style as Zentangles, and people will sit there and they'll kind of relax into coloring and turning their brain off, coloring these little shapes. But now you can do that while designing your own. So anyways, it does end up looking a little bit like an optical illusion, like it's going deeper and deeper and deeper. So that's one of my favorite patterns to do. Now the next pattern I'm going to teach you is to do almost kind of similar to this wave kind of style. You're going to start by making a grid of dots. So I'm going to do this shape now down here, and I'm going to start by doing dots in a row equal apart. And now I'm going to do another row. This is going to kind of be making these little squares with dots. And I want them to be like a grid. So in line vertically and in line horizontally. And I will fill this whole space. Okay. The dots aren't perfect, but that's okay. All right, so now you're going to be making S shapes connecting one dot to the next. So I'll start with one, put my marker on the dot, and I'll do an S shape to connect it to the next dot. Now you can switch to your thinner Sharpie if you would like at this point. So I'm just doing an S to connect it to the next one, and I'm keeping it going. All the way off the page. Now I'm going to do that to every single one. So this pattern has some options because you could leave it just like that with these kind of waves that are happening. You could do it horizontally where the waves are going side to side, or vertical like I'm doing. And then you have another choice. Like I said, you can leave it just as waves, or you can make them into these cool kind of spirally boxes. So after you finish doing all of these S's one direction, you can now do them the other direction. So it kind of makes these weird, funky little swirls that are squares that are almost turning into themselves, which is kind of cool. Then sometimes on this one, I like to go back in and kind of go back over my dots and make them a little bit bigger and a little bit more circular. But that's up to you if you want to do that step or not. I won't sit here and do all of them because then you'd be really bored on the video. But there's an option too. So anyways, I'll go in and I'll fill all the rest of my shapes with all these different patterns. Now it can be, you can continue to break the pictures up even smaller and have your patterns be smaller. Like maybe you do another line next to one of your lines and you fit a pattern directly into there. Maybe you then kind of make a flower in one section and do patterns that aren't necessarily filling the whole space, but are creating something in itself. Kind of radiating out of a point. I could keep that going. So there's a lot of options here, and you can do a bunch of different things. I'll show you a couple more, and then you can design your own patterns on your own. You don't have to do the ones I'm doing, or you can even look up even more options because there are tons online of different patterns other people have already created that you can try yourself. So just research patterns, and there's really cool things you can incorporate into your Zentangle. You can do ones that are more Celtic style, like these, more of an African style. You could do ones that have more of an Indian style or Japanese. You can take influence from any of these cultures, really. Middle Eastern, more of a Mexican vibe. Old school Victorian style, you can do Native American style. Basically, any direction you want to take for this. Another easy, simple one is if just you pick a section, divide it into an X from one side to the other side, and then just do lines coming out from here. And then each shape, kind of just outline that X. So far, I've just used this bigger Sharpie, but again, I like to switch it up so you have a lot of different kinds of lines, some more detailed things. So you have some bold patterns, some detailed patterns. It's up to you. That one's a fun one. It's pretty simple. It ends up being really cool. Anyways, so I'll show you the end product in a second. But like I said, you don't have to do it like this. You can turn an actual drawing into a Zentangle. So here's an example of a self-portrait I did that I made super funky and patterny. All right. There's a lot of ways you can take this. All right, so I finally finished it up. And here's what it can look like when you've covered the entire page.